Good morning, everybody. This is Steve Breach coming to you. Just got done listening to Observer Radio with Dave Meltzer and Mike Sempervini. And honestly, the biggest thing that came out of that show was a rumor that WWE is shopping for a home for NXT to be on American television. They didn't drop any rumors about anybody that would be looking at it, if it was sci-fi or anybody else. But honestly, really, this just shocks me that WWE would be looking for another television show to be put on TV. In my opinion, I feel like WWE is spread just way too thin. The most thing that I can really pick on is the 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. I can remember back to like 1998 when 2 hours of Monday Night Raw wasn't able to hold all of WWE. I mean, I remember that like those Monday Night War shows were just so slam packed, and you wanted to see more wrestling. It was like you couldn't wait until the next Monday or till Sunday if there was a pay-per-view to see what was going to happen next, what crazy ending they were going to come along with, and the birth of SmackDown, which came out on the UPN network, I think is what it was, which became CW, which became the My Network, to now what's on Sci-Fi. SmackDown, honestly, was just as much of an A show as Monday Night Raw was, just constantly pumping out good matches, keeping up on good angles, and just becoming a show that you had to watch as well as Monday Night Raw, or you were missing out. When Raw rolled around the next week, you would still be able to keep along with the storyline, but and just wrestling has changed so much these days with just so many shows, and they have so many wrestlers, and they even have so deep of a roster, but they're spreading themselves so thin doing these Raw super shows. I know they don't call them that anymore, but basically using all of the SmackDown guys. This isn't the right video for it, but I believe that the best thing WWE ever had was the draft, or the brand split, I guess you can call it. Was you had a group of guys that stayed on Raw, you had a group of guys that stayed on SmackDown. But then I think it was last year, they noticed that nobody was going to SmackDown shows because all of their main talent was on Monday Night Raw. So they started mixing their SmackDown guys over on Raw to get them more exposure. So when they came to town, people would know who Sheamus and Randy Orton were, and they'd be able to carry a show. Trick is that it's a year later and SmackDown's still having the same troubles that it has before. It never was helping. You need to be able to keep your Monday Night Raw show stacked and be able to trickle down to have enough talent on SmackDown that you can still carry your own show, or really there's no rhyme or reason. The reason they want to push NXT is they want to find the superstars of tomorrow, and they want to give them TV time. That makes sense. But in my mind, you already have shows on Monday, you have a show on Wednesday, you have your Friday SmackDown, and then on Saturday, you have Saturday Morning Slam on in the morning, and then you have Instant Classics' favorite show, AM Raw, that comes on, at the late night. That is a lot of freaking wrestling. And then if you're a real wrestling fan, you're probably going to want to watch Impact on Thursday. In my opinion, Impact is putting on the best TV show that's out there. Am I saying that I'm not going to watch Monday Night Raw tonight because it's Monday? No. Am I saying that I'm going to skip watching SmackDown on Friday? Probably, because I haven't really watched it in a long time, honestly. But in my opinions, the best shows that WWE is putting on is main events on Wednesday, 1 hour. Honestly, in my opinion, they're starting to scale back on it, and it's almost becoming superstars. But maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, they were putting real talent on there, and it was a real good show. At least the first match was. Maybe the second match of the night never really lived up to it, but that first match was awesome, and now it's starting to snowball down, and you can see pretty much that if Chris Masters was on the roster, he'd be working that opening match pretty soon. I always use Chris Masters as the joke for superstars, because I didn't have superstars here on my cable for a long time, and I always felt like I was missing out. And then finally my cable network added WGN. I flipped it on. First thing I see was Chris Masters versus Chavo Guerrero, and I knew maybe I wasn't missing out on much. I don't know. In my opinion, I think that NXT has its place on Hulu for people that really want to watch it. people that really want to watch that show are probably not going to be that worried about paying the $8 or bumming off of their friend's account to make sure that they can watch this show. I had Hulu for a long time. I just recently turned it off because I recently turned my cable back on, and I thought it was cool that I had NXT, but I honestly never watched it. I just didn't have that time, and I think the people that want to watch it there can go out of their way to watch it, and I don't really see why you would want to, push for more TV. ECW was one of my favorite shows that was on TV for a long, long time. Not ECW, but the WWE ECW, which was on Sci-Fi. I loved that show because it was a 1-hour show. They had a small roster of guys, and it felt like you were watching an indie show. That basically the guys did whatever they wanted to. There was no real rhyme or reason to that show. And I thought it was always, good wrestling and good storylines, and it was an easy show to follow along with. When it first came out, I think a lot of people were all hyped about it, that they thought it was going to be awesome, and the reason I knew it was never really going to work the way it was is because when they debuted it, every week they were trying a new gimmick, which was Undertaker's first time on ECW, Ric Flair's first time on ECW, DX comes to ECW. They were treating ECW like it was the ECW of the past. They weren't treating it like it was anything before. NXT as a show has been on Sci-Fi before, and in my opinion, that first season of NXT, if it just could have been that, and it just could have stopped much like a season of Tough Enough or something like that, and stood alone, it would have been like one of the best things in wrestling. You had, guys like Wade Barrett, who should be a future World Heavyweight Champion, who's a 2-time Intercontinental Champion, win the show. You had Daniel Bryan on there, one of the best wrestlers in the world, who's been a World Heavyweight Champion. You've had Darren Young, who was pretty much the joke of the show, who nobody liked, become a respectable wrestler with the primetime players. Justin Gabriel, a guy this summer who has a whole lot of talent, who's either going to become the Intercontinental Champion or get released pretty much. You had a whole bunch of guys. Slater's got a whole bunch of talent, who's sort of like in a role of a guy that gets featured on TV a lot. He doesn't get a lot of wins, but you can tell he's got talent. Michael Tarver's the guy who I thought had some talent they could have done something with, and he became a joke, and they got rid of him. Really, really good show. They birthed, it became the Nexus. If it would have stood alone, it would have been on its own thing. It trickled down to where they had the NXT 2, they did the NXT Girls, and then they had that last season of NXT, which just lasted forever, which had no rhyme or reason to it, which morphed into this new show, which is basically its own promotion. If this was to get a TV deal, I see them going the same way of what that ECW show was when they came out on Sci-Fi. I just see them pushing gimmicks of, CM Punk on NXT, and, they use a lot of these guys to go down there to help people out. Chris Jericho was on the show recently, but I just see them, pushing these guys on there to try to make the show better, when the show is supposed to be trying to feature, these young guys, and it end up featuring the guys that are on the current roster, as it is trying to get them over in different angles and things like that. And I don't know. As a wrestling fan, I think that if there was less wrestling, I would watch more wrestling, but there's so much on my plate that I just don't even know where to start sometimes, to where stuff will pile up on the DVR, and I just don't even want to try to attempt to watch it. There's too many reviews out there, and there's YouTube clips, and this, that, and the other, and it just makes it too easy. In my opinion, I think WWE needs to scale down. I think less wrestling would be more wrestling, which is better wrestling. In the long run, because you wouldn't have these writers trying to write 8 hours of TV each week when, there's really only ideas to really fill 2 to 3 hours at the most, and everything else is really just filler. That's me. What do you guys think? You guys want to see this on TV? Let me know. Peace out.